Good morning. I'm now going to do a review of factoring quadratic equations using the by regrouping or by grouping. Before I do the factoring part, I want to start, since when we factor something, we're basically undoing or reversing the multiplication process. I'm going to start with just a reminder on how we would multiply these two binomials together. Okay, again, we would use FOIL. So you would do the first two, 3x times 2x, and you would get 6x squared. And then the last, which would be 1 times 3x, which is 3x. And then the inside, which is 4 times 2x, which gives us 8x. And then the last 1 times 4 is 4. And so this is a part that I want you to, when we go to factor by regrouping, this is the part that's going to be important to us. And then again, just to finish off this part, we would say 6x squared plus 11x plus 4. And so now we've multiplied it. What we're going to be doing in factoring is we're going to start with this 6x squared plus 11x plus 4 and then go back the other way to end up with this right here. Okay, and so I just wanted to touch base to show you how we're starting with what we're multiplying, coming up with this answer down here, but when we factor it, we go from here back to the two binomials. Now we're starting with that same equation, 6x squared plus 11x plus 4, and we're going to factor it. In doing this, what we first want to look at is if we multiply this number, the 6 and the 4, together, we're going to get 24. Again, now I'm looking for factors of 24, that when I add those two factors together, it's going to equal 11. And when I start to list them, I would say 1 and 24, which we can see that's not it. 2 and 12, 3 and 8. And I can stop right now because look, it's 3 and 8. 3 times 8 equals 24, and 3 plus 8 equals 11 right here. The problem that we run into is if we do our two parentheses, we're going to run into trouble because of this 6. Normally when we've been doing it, we've just had a 1 right here. What we're going to do is we are going to split these. Keep in mind this 3 and this 8 equal 11, so they both are, it's 3x and 8x. But we just have to regroup it to figure out where it's going to go. When I regroup it, it's important that I look at the 3 and the 8 and the 6 and the 4 because I want to put them where they both have the same greatest common factor. So, for example, I wouldn't put the 3 next to the 4. I would put the 3 with the 6 because 6 and 3 both have a common factor of 3. Where the 3 is not a factor of 4. And you'll see that if you write it out the wrong way when you go to factor it, you'll see I'm just able to look ahead. So let me go ahead and do it where it doesn't make sense so that you can actually see it. If I had 6x squared and I first wrote plus 8x plus 3x plus 4, what happens is right here I can't find a common factor, and right here I can't find a common factor. So if I switch the directions of these two, it will make it easier for me. So I'm going to write 6x squared plus 3x plus 8x. Sorry, my pen is not working, or my stylus. Plus 4. Okay, this is an 8. Now, I'm kind of, when I'm grouping them, I'm going to group these two together, and I'm going to group these two together. So I'm just looking for, and I just look at this, what is the greatest common factor of both of these, the 6x squared and the 3x? It would be 3x, because I'm looking at both the number and the variable. So I would have 3x, and then what would I have left? 2x plus 1. Okay, because I factored out a 3x from 6x squared and 3x. Then I'm looking over here, and what can I factor out of here? And I have 8x plus 4. It can just be the number, and the greatest common factor is going to be 4. So I'm keeping the sign the same. The sign is not changing. And I'm going to end up with 2x plus 1. Now I have 3x times the quantity 2x plus 1, and I'm adding it to 4 times the quantity 2x plus 1. From here, I'm looking for another greatest common factor or something that I can pull out. And what needs to happen is you are going to see two identical things on expressions on both sides of this plus sign here that's in the middle. And so what you're doing is you are factoring out that 2x plus 1. So when I go to factor something out, I'm taking this 2x plus 1 and factoring it out. And what it really amounts to, again, when we factor something, it's like dividing. So if I divide both sides by 2x plus 1, these go away. And so I would just have 3x here, and the same thing happens here, and I would have plus 4. And so 2x plus 1 times 3x plus 4 would be the factored form of the quadratic equation we started out with, which if you go back and look, when I multiplied this in the beginning, this is what we started out with. So we're going to try another one together, or you can follow along with me to give you another example. We're going to factor 10x squared plus 17x plus 3. When I look at this, I'm looking, there's nothing I can factor out with the greatest common factor right now. I look at this and it has a 10 in front of it instead of a 1, which is going to make it more difficult. So I'm thinking I'm going to try regrouping. And this is just the things that go through my head. Like, how am I going to factor this, right? Those are the things I check off right away. But I'm going to start out doing the 10. Now that I've decided that it's not just going to be super easy and I'm going to have to try a different method, I'm going to do 10 times 3. And that's where I get my 30. From here, I'm looking for factors of 30 that when they add together, they equal 17. The first thing I try is 1 times 30, and that, when I add those together, that's 31. So that's not it. I do 2 times 15, and look, 2 plus 15 equals 17, so that's what I'm looking for. And keep in mind, this is going to be my 2x and my 15x in my equation. Now I come back here and I decide which one am I going to put first. Am I going to do 2x plus 15x or 15x plus 2x when I rewrite it out, breaking this apart? That's all we're doing is breaking that apart. I'm going to put the 15x second because 15 and 3 have a common factor of 3, and 10 and 2 have a common factor of 2. Since 3 doesn't go into 10, I'm not going to, since 15 doesn't go into 10, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to rewrite the equation 10x squared plus 2x plus 15x plus 3. Now maybe you can, if you weren't following what I said, it's confusing. Now maybe you can see it. I have this right here, right? They both have a common factor of 2, and right here both has a common factor of 3. If I were to put the 2x over where the 15x is, it would not work. And if you make that mistake, you just have to rewrite it a different way. I'm looking at these two things separately, so I'm just looking at the 10x squared plus 2x. I'm looking for the greatest common factor, so I can factor that out. When I look at the numbers, it's going to be 2. When I look at the variables, it's going to be x. And then I do make my parentheses. And then what do I have left? When I factor out a 2x from 10x squared, I have 5x. And here I have 1. So it's plus 1. On this side, I can factor out just a 3. So I have the 3 here. And then I can divide both sides by 3 or factor out a 3. And I have 5x plus 1. And what needs to happen is you have to have two things on both sides of the equation that are the same, and we have that, so we have 5x plus 1. Our final answer then is going to be 5x plus 1. And then this is what would be left inside the other parenthesis, which is 2x plus 3. So if I factor that out, this 10x squared plus 17x plus 3, you're going to get 5x plus 1 times the quantity 2x plus 3. Again, because I'm a very conscientious student, I would go back and I would check my work by multiplying these two things together, and I should end up with what I started out with and checking our work. I think I have time for one more example. What I would do right now is pause the video and try this problem, and then you can watch to see how I've done it, see if you get the correct answer. I'm going to do 2 times negative 21, which is negative 42. When I'm looking for factors, I know since this is a 1 right here, and I'm jumping ahead because I am going to run out of time, I have 6 times 7 equals 42. I need it to be negative, so I'm going to make the 6 negative only because this is positive, so I know the 7 has to be positive. If you need to work through that a little bit, then you can, but I'm going to stop right there. When I rewrite my equation, it's going to be 2x squared minus 6x plus 7x minus 21. When I factor out of here, I'm going to factor out a 2x. I do need to be careful of my signs. So this is going to be x. It's a minus, so I keep the subtraction, x minus 3. And over here, I can factor out a 7. So I have 7 times x minus 3. Okay? Now that gives me, here's my x minus 3 that I would then factor out. And when I factor out the x minus 3, if you need to remember, it's just like dividing this side by x minus 3 and it cancels out, and divide this side by x minus 3 and it cancels out. And so what I would have left would be 2x plus 7. And so my factored, when I factor 2x squared plus x minus 21, I get the quantity x minus 3 times the quantity x plus, or 2x plus 7. Okay? So I hope this helps you. I am going to go ahead and make up some practice work, and I will submit that for you as well.